Hey everybody, this is Karen Allen from Trinity Health Hub. Eugenie has asked me to share one of our webinars for you to enjoy during this holiday season. Our hub specializes in continuing education and community connection all around the globe. If you'd like to find out more about what we do or the content that you can stream on demand, visit our website, trinityhealthhub.com. We look forward to seeing you online. And welcome everybody. We are continuing on with our series about the Valerianic remedies. These are the remedies that were the benzodiazepines of the 1860s, 50s, 70s, 80s. And the reference that I'm going to give you for today is the writings of Alexander Blackwood, and Blackwood's Manual of Materia Medica and Homeopathic Therapeutics, I think is what it's called. You can find it on archive.org, and I'll go ahead and post that link with this recording. He doesn't say a lot in there, but basically he says that Ferrum Valerianicum stands between Valerian and Ignatia, and that we should be thinking about it for those clients who are anemic and presenting a pattern like Valeriana or Ignatia, where those remedies don't act. And think about the number of times that you've had a situation where, God, it looks like Ignatia, or it looks like Valeriana, it looks like hysterical, I've lost my doodah, and you give those remedies and they don't do anything, and you think, wow, not even a sausage, not even a partial credit for showing my work. And you really want to get some feedback from the vital force. So what we're going to be doing today is talking about how sometimes the problem is really arising all out of the biology. It's actually a metabolic process. It's not so much a disturbance of the vital force. Of course, the disturbed vital force is underlaying that. But think back in the 1860s, 70s, 80s, 90s, how much physical pathology they had with malnutrition, with toxicity in environments, water, food, poisons, things that we don't deal with so much now. And so some of these remedies really deal with those basic biologies, and that's what we're seeing with this remedy. If there is only one remedy that you walk away from this series with and say, I'm going to order that, I'm going to keep it on hand, I'm going to use it, let it be this one remedy, Ferrum Valerianicum. Okay? Now, you may have trouble finding it. If you have trouble locating it, you can use Ferrum Metallicum in, say, a 3X or a 3C, and Valeriana in a 3X or a 3C, and you put in a little bit of this, and you put in a little bit of that, and there you go. Don't feel afraid to make your own pharmacy with these, because the Valeriana salts aren't so easy to find. For those of you who live in places where you can order remedies from Remedia Pharmacy in Austria, they have this, and you can order it directly from them. For anybody else, get your doses of Ferrum Metallicum and your doses of Valeriana and put them together. Okay? So let's start with a case. Well, actually, we're going to start with two cases, both of which I failed and flailed magnificently. Okay? First case is a 4-month-old baby, female infant, whose mom is now in jail, drug arrest. The baby was adopted fostered, and then later adopted. The baby was in a foster home at 3 days old when the mom was arrested and taken off to jail. The baby this is one of those little bitty ones that I don't think it's politically correct to call them crack babies, but that is the scenario. This is a baby that was coming out of drug addiction. So the adoptive mom brings the baby and says, baby never sleeps. Baby screams all the time. Baby's eyes never seem to close except for a quick blink. Baby never closes eyes and falls asleep no matter what. Baby is wired all the time, like baby on speed. Now, the baby is not, some babies have a very alert, difficult, negative reaction. They clearly don't want to be touched. That's not the scenario with this little one. This little one is just too alert. Failure to thrive at 4 months old is still just under 11 pounds, about the size of a 6-week-old baby, has very, very frequent startle reflex, to like jump, frequent, out of nowhere. Very little motion. Other than the startle reflex, the baby doesn't move very much. The eyes are clear. The baby looks awake and alert, but kind of vacant, like the lights are on, but nobody's home. That's what the mom tells me. Never, the mom has, in the 4 months, the mom has never seen the baby close her eyes. She screams often and randomly. She has a very poor quality suck for the bottle. It's very difficult to get her to take enough food. In the week prior to coming to see me, she has started with a Bach flower practitioner who's giving some Bach flowers, and the pediatrician has some appetite stimulant support. The baby has been given, one other thing. I asked, what about the labs? What about any other basic data? And the baby was severely anemic at birth, has had 2 blood transfusions in the first few months of life. Now all the labs show normal, and this is the baby's behavior. Normal gut, normal diapers, normal body temperature, and thermoregulation. And that's the case. So we gave the baby nux vomica, opium, morphinum, codinum, stramonium, belladonna, alcoholus, aconite, veratrum, calc carb, mag mir, mag sulf, all the clean the liver out remedies, and at least a dozen other remedies. There was never the vaguest response to any remedy. Okay, what do you think? Do you guys have cases like this where you just don't even get any partial credit? So by this time, about 8 to 10 weeks have gone by, and the mom brings the baby back again. And by this time, I have a different idea and was able to give a successful remedy. This was a Ferrum Valerianicum case, and the baby began to sleep, the baby began to eat, the baby began to put on weight and grow. Now, this child continued to have developmental delays and deficits, cognitive deficits, even into, I think that the last time that I had any kind of follow-up, she was 12 or 13. Because we can't repair what happened to that baby's brain early on. But of the capacity that she had, she was certainly making the most of it. Okay, questions about that case? Have any of you guys worked with crack babies? I don't know what the politically correct term is, and I apologize if I've offended anybody saying something that I shouldn't say, but I don't know what else to call them. Sandy says, what finally tipped you off to Ferrum Valerianicum? That is the rest of the class, so I will launch into that. Yvonne says, never closes the eyes is a characteristic. Never sleeps is part of the Valerianica thing, cannot sleep. Yeah. Okay, second case. We're going to do these two cases, and then we're going to launch into the biology and the materia medica. Second case is a 74-year-old woman with sudden onset dementia. Now, sudden onset dementia in an elder who has been normal is usually associated with a drug or some kind of other input or disruption. Not a common thing to just spontaneously arise. Okay, so the daughter, who is my client, calls me and says, my mom had a sudden change 8 days ago. About 4 months ago, she relocated from her home. My father had died like 2 to 3 years ago. She'd been living alone. We'd all been encouraging her to do something else. She didn't want to leave her home, but eventually she agreed that she would like to go to this retirement community because she had friends at this new facility. The home sold, everything seemed positive. She seemed much happier there, but she complained a lot about the food. She didn't like the food, and she's always had kind of a sensitive stomach. So she started eating Tums all the time because she had this sour stomach all the time. For over a month before this point where I'm talking to the daughter, she had been making occasional comments about fatigue. She was unexpectedly tired. The mom was unexpectedly tired, sitting and eating her Tums. And then 8 days ago, there was this major freak out. She was at dinner. There were several family members that had come to have dinner with her, and she just became an insane person, screaming nonsense, throwing plates in the little cafe that they have there at the facility, then crying, sobbing, unable to answer questions, doesn't know her name, disoriented, hugely reactive, didn't want to be touched, poor motor coordination, gets up, falls down, kind of twitchy, kind of restless. In the 10 days since then, she has fallen twice. She's extremely restless. She does not sleep, and she is very agitated. And the daughter says for these 10 days, she acts sort of like a drunk Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean. You guys know what I mean? What that kind of appearance is? She has clarity during the day, but from dinner time into the night, she's just insane and sitting there eating her Tums. Now, her primary care practitioner is out of town, and the daughter has been negotiating with the facility to kind of keep the mom in her room until she can see the doc. The mom is sensitive to medications, and so the daughter is very protective of her. And they have an appointment later, like 2 or 3 days after they talk with me, to go to see a gerontologist, and she's going to get checked out. Now, as I'm talking with the daughter, she tells me that the mom was absolutely normal 8 days ago. And then this whole event happens, and she says, I don't know this person. Extremely sudden change. So as I talk to the mom, the things I learn are her spine is extremely sensitive, and it hurts to lean back in a chair. It hurts her spine. And I'm talking to her at 9 o'clock in the morning, and she is probably 80% normal. She has some non sequitur answers to some of my questions, some random comments, but for the most part, she's able to answer questions. She says she's okay. She seems to have these times that she's upset, but she's not very clear about them. She's having hallucinations of sound and smell, where she's sure that she hears someone or something, a door closing, a music in the distance, a dog barking, it can be anything, and nobody else can hear it. She also has hallucinations of smell that nobody else can hear. As I talk to her about what else, she tells me that her fingers feel alive. They feel very alive. And I'm asking her, what does alive mean? She doesn't have any other word for it. She tells me many, many, many times that she wants a steak, that she's hungry for a steak. She's asking to eat steak. Her daughter is vegetarian, and the daughter is continually steering her toward vegetarian options and trying to manage food around her to keep her healthy, doesn't want her eating red meat in particular, but hasn't. So she keeps saying she wants a steak. And as I observe, she's got these red circumscribed circles on her cheeks. So what do we do with this gal? Does anybody have a clear idea about what Tums are made of? Yeah, Mary says, stop the Tums. What happens when you eat Tums? They're actually calcium carbonate. Richard says acid. What does that mean, Richard? Can you tell me more? What happens when people eat Tums? Yes, they eat them because she's got a sour stomach and it controls the acid. Right. Dot says unable to absorb minerals. That could be a factor. One of the known things when people eat a lot of Tums is that it depletes the body of iron. It depletes the body of iron. She relocated to this home 4 months ago. She's been eating Tums pretty much nonstop every day for the last 3.5 months. How long does it take to make a red blood cell from the time that it pops up in your bones to the time it gets through your body and taken out of circulation in your spleen? About 3 months, right? So here we are, about 4 months in, and over the past month, comments about fatigue. And then 10 days ago, she has this major freak out. She can't sleep. She has hallucinations of sound and smell. She has red circles on her cheeks, and she is craving meat. So let's talk about these. Let's talk a little bit about iron metabolism and the Goldilocks sweet spot, the not too big, the not too small. Iron transports oxygen. It's in charge of nitric oxide metabolism. It's involved in DNA synthesis. It's involved in motor coordination and immune response. It has a critical role in the morphology of the brain, which is why all of you who are working with pregnant ladies should make sure that they are getting good iron intake in their last trimester of pregnancy, supported by Ferrum Phos cell salts. So iron plus, let's just do a little brain chemistry thing. Iron plus lipids plus cholesterol plus proteins equals myelin. Myelin is the insulator that surrounds the nerves, the sheath. If we were looking at the wiring in your house, it would be that little plasticky wire that the metal wires are wrapped in. And it surrounds nerves in the brain, in the spinal cord, all throughout your body. And myelin protects the nerve cells, and it facilitates that electrical impulse so that it can move quickly. And it also maintains the strength of the nerve signal so that you don't get a big push over here. But by the time it got all the way down to your foot, it's like, yeah, I don't know what that was about. Okay. Iron deficiency is the most prevalent single nutritional deficiency worldwide. Anemia is a factor in low immunity and delayed growth and impaired thermoregulation. For babies, if there is an iron deficiency, they get very poor myelination in the brain during pregnancy and in their immediate postnatal development that is not repaired by later additions of and normal iron levels. There are developmental delays in children, cognitive disruptions that are very substantial in teens that are iron deficient, which again are not repaired by later iron supplementation and normal levels. And with our teenagers, we tend to see this in what? What group of teens is the most likely to be anemic? Any idea? Our girls, yes, these gals that are menstruating and flooding, having frequent periods, heavy periods, and it really disrupts them. So iron deficiency suppresses the energy metabolism. It actually shrinks up the little mitochondria. Oh yeah, especially if they're vegan. Yep. And iron deficiency disrupts behavior and emotion. Iron is a cofactor along with the enzymes that synthesize dopamine and serotonin. So there's a research study that was done all about iron dysregulation and the impact on the limbic system. And a couple of quotes from that study. Emotional behaviors are strongly affected by brain iron levels, especially deficiency. Second quote, iron deficient children have increased anxiety and or depression with marked social and attentional problems. Third quote, anxiety-driven behavior is linked to poor iron status. For example, excessive fearfulness is found in anemic or marginally anemic infants, despite iron therapy. These infants produce more vocalizations of distress. It does not have to be far out of normal range to produce anxiety. So, iron in excess damages the nerves and the brain tissue. And there is actually this diagnosis, just like there's problems with too little, there's problems with too much. There's a diagnosis called neurodegeneration with brain iron accumulation, NBIA. And when people have too much iron, they usually have movement disorders, spasticity, Parkinsonism, often accompanied by neuropsychological and psychiatric features that include delusions, hallucinations, personality changes with emotional reactivity, depression, violent outbursts, impulsivity, hyperactivity, poor attention span, and cognitive impairment. So for clients who have hemochromatosis, which is too much iron, the body is accumulating too much iron. Ferrum apoptosis, where the blood cells, the iron dies off and goes away, isn't happening properly. Or hemosiderosis, where little iron deposits build up in the tissue, usually in the lung or the kidneys. Psychiatric illnesses are directly linked to iron dysregulation. There is also a very strong link between serum iron levels, too much or too low, and the severity of back pain. There's also a very strong linkage between intervertebral disc degeneration and excess iron. So, what we know about iron dysregulation is that whether you've got too much or whether you've got too little, it has a massive impact on the limbic system. So in both of these cases, there was a factor of iron dysregulation where the biology was expressing through the behavior. In the little baby's case, no sleep, which we would think of as a overstimulation of the nervous system, which also arises out of iron dysregulation. And this baby was severely anemic at birth with the drug-addicted mom and has had blood transfusions. The iron level has been brought up, but it hasn't repaired the myelination disturbance from early on. Now, let's just do a quick review for those of you where this might be the first one that you're jumping in on. We're going to do a quick review of the Valerians. Hypersensitivity of all senses, nervous excitability, sudden onset of symptoms, vertigo as if from intoxication, worse in the evening, fearful, especially in the dark and in the evening, nervous as night comes on, rapid change of ideas, unusual ideas, nonsensical ideas, hallucinations of sight and sound and taste, nervous restlessness with an impulse to move the mind, to move the emotions, to move the body. There's often some kind of digestive issue, queasy stomach, barfy. Very often there's some kind of urinary issue, frequent profuse urination. There is a very strong cerebrospinal affinity with pain in the spine, sense of swelling or discomfort or tenderness in the spine, twitching and jerking, sciatica. And there is profound disruption to sleep, sleeplessness, restless, wakefulness. It very often comes up in perimenopausal women. Now, we've talked about this before as a remedy that when you think about zinc,um about valeriana, you can think of it as if we did a little diagram, a geometric diagram where we had several sides, points around it, and then valerian is right in the center. And the points around it, we would have zincum and aconite and asarum and ignatia and mercurius and pulsatilla and stannum and maybe theridion. Think about what you know about those remedies and allow the calculus of all of that to help you get a comprehension of valerian. Now, what Blackwood says in his manual, and this was published in 1906. He was born in the 1860s, so he grew up in an era when this was part of standard medicine. And he says that when you see someone who has iron dysregulation, chlorosis, which was their old term for anemia, where somebody was kind of greenish, or some kind of anemia, ailments from loss of blood, and there was stress or disruption to the central nervous system, that's when you should think of Ferrum Valerianicum. In this case of the little baby, Ferrum Valerianicum took away all of those frequent startle reflex. She began to relax and go to sleep because the sleeplessness, the hyperactivity of the nervous system calmed down. She became stronger. She was able to eat. She was able to put on weight. So in this particular case, a lot of reasonable remedies had been given, but I believe that she needed some repair to the broken iron metabolism in her body that Ferrum Valerianicum offered. Now, I didn't try giving her just plain old valerian. I don't know what that would have done. That might have worked, might not have worked. In the second case, this client was the suddenness of the change and the story of the eating tums and the craving meat and the sensitivity of the spine and the hallucinations of sound and smell. She sounds like somebody who is depleted of iron. I asked that the daughter had ferrum phos cell salts right with her, and she could give them to her. And then the first remedy that I gave was Ferrum arsenicum, which didn't do anything, which usually repairs iron dysregulation. But then I remembered about the sensitivity to the spine and the hallucinations of sound and smell. And later, after she was kind of back in her right mind, she said the finger's alive. What she was trying to tell me was that she was having all this tingling, numbness, all that kind of stuff in her fingers. Anyway, she was given Ferrum Valerianicum, and the change in her was immediate and remarkable. And they did blood labs. They found that she was very anemic, and they started having her eat meat and take Floradix, and she had a whole bunch of things that she did. So the old homeopaths used to give these remedies in 3x, 5x, 6x, 3C, 6C, 9C, almost always in low potency. Now, I've used valeriana in a wide range of potencies, but I've only used ferrum valerian in low potencies taken very frequently. And I asked for both of these cases that they take Ferrum Valerianicum, and I can't remember, it was like 3X or 5X or 3C. It was one of those low potencies, whatever I had in my cabinet at the time, and had them put it in water and take it 4 times a day. Now, these remedies are repair remedies. They are vulneraries for the disrupted iron metabolism. I have no idea what a Ferrum Valerianicum might look like as a constitutional remedy. In the same way that benzodiazepines are given as a repair for an urgent situation, this is a remedy that is an intervention for an urgent situation. The baby that had all of the problems, the drug baby, eventually transitioned into a burrito carb picture and did very well with burrito carb. The elderly lady eventually transitioned into a mag mirror picture and did very well with mag mirror. So I want you to be aware of these remedies, because there are times when the iron metabolism is screaming at us, and we are thinking that it's part of the client's adaptation in the world. And it is, but the biology is so strong that it's shouting through the client's experience. So I want to encourage all of you to check out some of the research that shows what happens. Be aware that disruption in iron metabolism isn't just about feeling weak in the thighs and feeling, peripheral neuropathy or pale in the under eyelids. It actually has a direct effect in the mental emotional sphere. And when there is a strong neurological affinity, think about Ferrum Valerianicum. Okay, does that answer your question, Connie? No, Kelly, I was saying pale under the eyelids. One of the ways when you don't have a blood test to assess how iron rich someone's tissues are is to ask them to pull down their lower eyelid and peek at the inside. And if it's like pale white, that person is likely to be a little bit low on iron. Okay, that's it, guys. We're going to be carrying on with this series. I'm super glad to see all of you here. For those of you who are registered with the Hub, you'll see this session on the open access page the 1st of September. For those of you who are subscribed on the Hub, you'll be able to go see it on the MatMed page along with the various links. Okay. Oh, Sandy, thanks. All right. Hugs to you all. I'll look forward to seeing you with our next session, which is going to be Strychninum Valerianicum, which is a combination of Nux vomica alkaloid and valerian. Okay. Have a great time, guys. I will see you again on the hub soon. Bye-bye.